Hello, everyone. Hi, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, as per your time zones. My name is Janvi Padia, and I am the India regulatory expert at Ecomondo. Um, so today I would be speaking about how you can successfully export your products in India. So to begin with, can we have the slide, please? And its scope. Then we are going to see the cosmetic regulations in India, how did it start and the history, etc. Who can apply for registration? New Cosmetic Rules 2020, which was published only end of last year, to be precise. Categorization and government fees for registration, standards for formulation compliance. Then we are going to, so I think let's just dig in and start with our first slide, which is overview of Indian cosmetic market and scope. Yeah. So India, basically, as you all are aware, India is a very is the second most populated country in the world, with around 1.3 billion people. And the Indian cosmetic market was valued to around 13.2 billion in 2020, and is estimated to be valued around 28.9 billion by 2026. And this is a very good growth, which is there, keeping in mind the pandemic. Due to the pandemic, the skincare line saw a very good growth in the market, and makeup did get affected a bit. But eventually the cosmetic market is very good, and due to increasing demand uh, in the online sector as well, it is a very good scope for getting your products registered in India, and hence many international brands are planning to get their products in the country and making a debut in India. Yes, the leading market, of course, is Unilever, followed by Colgate Palmolive and P&G. Next, please. Next, please. Yeah. So what are the cosmetic regulations in India, and how did it all start? Yeah. So basically, cosmetic regulations in India is known as Cosmetic Rules 2020, and it comes under Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. Um, all this is regulated by a body based out in Delhi, which is known as CDSCO. The definition of cosmetic is similar to the definition of cosmetics overall. So cosmetic means that any article which is intended to be rubbed, poured, sprayed on, or applied to on the skin or any body part for the purpose of cleaning, beautification, and the use is only for cosmetic purpose. The intent of the authorities to introduce this cosmetic rule was to keep a track of substandard product in the country, and to report and to see the import products and compare it with the products manufactured in the country. Yeah. So all this came into place like in the year 2013, wherein the authorities thought of getting regulations for cosmetic in India. And this was a part of basically the Drugs and Cosmetic Act 1945. And then they thought of having a separate regulation for cosmetic, and hence only last year, but only in the end of last year, that is by December 2012, they came up with 2019, sorry, they came up with a new cosmetic rule, which is known as Cosmetic Rules 2020. So which is the application form for registration? The application form is known as COS1, wherein you enter all your details and submit it for registration, and the registration form which you get is known as COS2. These are just the name of the forms about which we will talk ahead. in the upcoming slides. Also, India is going digital now. So earlier we used to submit hard copies for registration, which is replaced in year 2016, wherein India now has an online portal, which is known as Sugam. Next, please. Yeah. So who can apply for registration? Of course, the manufacturer himself having registered office in India. So any manufacturer or the brand owner owning the trade name which is residing, of course, outside India is allowed to apply for registration in India. That manufacturer can have its own manufacturing facility, or it can subcontract it to any other manufacturer. That is not a problem. So the manufacturer can import in India. The subsidiary of the manufacturer in India, for example, you can go by L'Oreal India Private Limited or Shiseido India Private Limited, etc. They can apply for registration. The authorized agent of the manufacturer. So any company in India who is getting their products manufactured outside India can also apply for registration as well. And any other importer can apply for registration. So these are the people who can apply for registration in India. Next, please. Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, that the Drugs and Cosmetic Act 1945, which had the cosmetic rules merged with them, only last year, to be precise, 15th of December last year, the authorities, they came up with a new rule, which is known as Cosmetic Rule 2020. The aim of this was to have, different set of rules and a different guidelines for labeling for manufacturer, for etc., and not to merge it with the Drugs Act. So to very quickly go through what were the old rules and what are the new rules now. So I'll go one by one. So earlier, the application form for registration was Form 43, which is now known as COS, Form 42, sorry, which is now known as COS 1. Earlier, the registration which we used to get was in Form 43, which is now COS 2. This is just the change in nomenclature. The content remains the same. Earlier, the validity for registration was for 3 years, and this is a very good news that now the validity of registration is for 5 years. They have extended it by 2 years. Earlier, the fee for renewal means if your license is about to get expired, you have to apply it 6 months prior. So the fee for renewal was the applicable category fee, as well as the fee for variant. And now the fee for renewal is the same, but in case you fail to apply at the time, then you will have to pay the penalty fee of 2% for every month for 180 days. They allow you to get the extension for 180 days, but with a penalty fee of 2%. The permission for manufacturing, the particulars of the manufacturer and the details of cosmetics to be imported. Earlier, the form was known as Schedule D3, and now the form is known as second schedule, part 1. It is just the change in nomenclature. The information of the form remains the same once again. Again, a good news. Earlier, the category fee to be paid to the government was $2,000, which is now reduced to half to $1,000, which is a very good news after the validity being extended. Earlier, there used to be no manufacturing facility fee, and now they have the fee of $500. There was no concept of new cosmetic before, but now they have introduced this concept. Now, what this new cosmetic means, I have written it down in my slide. So new cosmetic basically is a cosmetic that contains a novel ingredient that has not been used anywhere in the world. okay, or is not registered for use in any country for national international use. So in this case, if the ingredient is very new, you need to apply for that ingredient. This is a very new concept which has been introduced, about which we'll talk later. Now, this is another a very beautiful point and a very advantageous point which has been introduced in Cosmetic Rules 2020. A single brand can have many importers. So in earlier, if another importer wanted to register the same brand, the another importer had to go through the entire process all over again. But now this has been eased out. If the license is in place for a brand and a importer, the second importer just have to give that reference and along with a lesser amount of documents to have it registered. Next, please. Now, what is known as categorization and government fees? This is very important because on basis of this, you have to pay to the government for having license in hand. So as per the Ministry of Health and Family Affairs, they have categorized the cosmetic products into 80 categories. Categories meaning, for example, body care product, face care product, nail varnish, nail makeup, lipstick, hair conditioner, etc. So like this, we have 80 categories in place. And what each category is charged as, we have it in the table. So each category, they have charged a fee amount of $1,000 for each variant. So there are 3 places where they are charging for each category $1,000 for each variant. By variant, I mean the color, shade, fragrance, etc. For each variant, they are charging $50. For each manufacturing site, as I mentioned earlier, they are charging $500. And for if you have a new cosmetic, which is a new ingredient as per the definition, the application form is charging $500, which I have written it here. And for renewal, as I mentioned earlier, for renewal, they are charging the same. And in case you are late, then you have to pay a penalty fee of 2% per month, which is valid for 180 days. Yeah. Next, please. Then, what are the standard for formulation compliance? So for registration, of course, you need to submit your ingredient listing. So what are the standards to be followed for ingredient, for your formulation, basically to be compliant to Indian regulations, right? So an ingredient list or a composition list is to be submitted along with a qualitative and quantitative breakdown of each ingredient. You cannot submit the range. You need to mention the exact percent weight by weight of the ingredient present in your formulation. Also, no cosmetic can be imported unless it complies with the specification prescribed under Schedule S and Schedule Q. Now, what are these schedules? Schedule S is cosmetic standards laid down from time to time by the Bureau of Indian Standard, and Schedule Q is list of dye, color, and pigments permitted to be used in cosmetics. Yeah, the Bible. Now, the Bible for reference for formulation compliance is known as BIS, which is Bureau of Indian Standard, which was published in the year 1986. The Indian standard for cosmetic is known as, now BIS is a very big standard, in that the standard for cosmetic is known as IS 4707, which is classification of cosmetic raw materials and adjuvants. Part 1 is for, so there are 2 parts in the standard for cosmetics. Part 1 is for dyes, color, and pigment, and part 2 is for list of raw materials which are generally not recognized as safe for use in cosmetics. Yeah. So Annex A. So for part 1, it's the positive list for dyes, colors, and pigments that can be used. Part 2, the raw materials, it is divided into 4 annexes, whereas the Annex 1 is for ingredients which are completely prohibited to be used in the cosmetic product. Annex 2 are ingredients which cosmetic product must not contain except subject to the restrictions and conditions that have been laid down. Okay. Annex C and Annex D again are the positive lists. So Annex C is the positive list of preservatives which can be included in the cosmetic product. but it also has some restrictions. And Annex D is UV filters, which cosmetic product may contain. Again, it has some restrictions. This is similar to EU regulation. Okay, next please. Yeah, also along with the ingredient check, we also have something known as heavy metal compliance and ban on cosmetic tested on animals. Yeah, so so the manufacturer, basically they need to submit a compliance letter for heavy metals in whenever they are submitting an application for registration. Yeah, so for they have to submit the compliance letter having the test items as lead, arsenic, mercury, and other heavy metals, which if present as trace impurities, they should not be more than the below stated BIS limit. I will come in the table and I'll talk to you about the BIS limit. The use of lead and arsenic compound for the purpose of coloring is prohibited. No cosmetic containing hexachlorophene shall be manufactured. Now, the compliance letter needs to have this table wherein you have to state that the no cosmetic that you are getting in the country, if it is having heavy metal as trace impurities, it should not, the product is not exceeding the BIS limit as per India. So for arsenic, the BIS limit is less than 2 ppm. For lead, it is less than 20 ppm. For mercury, it is divided into two categories. One is for eye products such as eyeliners, mascara, etc. For that, if it is present as a trace impurity, its limit should not exceed more than 70 ppm. And if for other finished cosmetic product, it should be less than 1 ppm. Yeah, and other heavy metals, if present, they should be less than 100 ppm. Now this is about the heavy metals. Now again, in India, as per EU, there is ban on cosmetic which are tested on animals. So according to the new cosmetic rule 2020, any product which has been tested on animal after 12th of November 2014 shall not be imported into the country, and they have to give an undertaking stating the same. Yeah, and the undertaking also at times is required to be submitted at the time of custom clearance, stating that the cosmetic product imported in the country is not being tested on animals. So this is with respect to heavy metal and ban on cosmetics tested on animals. Next, please. Coming to the most important part of the presentation, that is labeling guidelines for cosmetics. So what are the labeling guidelines for cosmetics? So the cosmetic product needs to mandatorily have this information if you want to import it into India. Yeah, one is the brand name. The brand name meaning, like for example, Garnier, Maybelline, New York, Dove, Lux, etc. It needs to have the brand name. It needs to have the product name. Like Intense Repair shampoo, Intense Repair conditioner, etc. It needs to have the generic name. By generic name, I mean the function. The consumer should be able to understand the function of the product. So it needs to have the generic name. For example, for shampoo, the generic name would be shampoo. For conditioner, the generic name would be hair conditioner, like that. It needs to mention net quantity and not gross quantity. So hence I have written it there precisely. It needs to mention the net quantity, which is also known as pack size in India. Generally, it is known as pack size. Batch number, it needs to have the batch number. Manufacturing date, and manufacturing date in the format of DD, MM, YY. Use before date. The ingredient listing. Direction of use and caution, if any. For example, for hair color, there is a set of caution which needs to be mentioned on the label, which is mandatory. Manufactured by and made in country name. Sometimes the brand owner and the actual manufacturer is the same. Sometimes it's different. So they need both the manufactured by details as well as the made in country name to be mentioned on the pack, month and year of import. Now point number 11 and point number 12, which is month and year of import and registration certificate number and importer details. This obviously one cannot have it in place before shipping the product to the country. So next slide, please. So hence stickering of labels. So for having the registration certificate number and name and address of importer, what they have done is the authorities, they have allowed this details to be stickered at a suitable declared place approved by the licensing authority in India. Yeah, so this permission they have granted to everyone. Okay, so this is one plus point. In addition to this, in addition to the labeling points that I mentioned in the first slide, the authority, brand owner, they also need to comply to the rules under Legal Metrology Act. So basically, Legal Metrology Act have rules with respect to the font size and the font style. Okay, rest all details remain the same. So to conclude, cosmetic products, they have to follow the cosmetic rule 2020 as well as the legal metrology rule to have the label compliant. Okay, also a short description about what claims are approved in India. So we have only a rule stating that it is not very clearly defined as to what is allowed and what is not allowed. So as per Rule 36, there is a prohibition against false or misleading claim. So no cosmetic may be imported into the country which has the idea of, having false and misleading claim. Okay, now cosmetic product cannot make any therapeutic or medical claim. Okay, this is also not allowed. Okay, so any claim such as, for example, treatment or okay, and helps you getting cured, or anti acne, anti pimple, as well as these claims are also not allowed. So a very beautiful example I have here is that many SPF products mention the word drug facts on their label. Now this has to be avoided since drug facts may attract the definition of drug. So hence they might raise a query saying that this is not falling under cosmetic domain, but it is a drug product, and might ask you to remove that product. Next, please. Now, what documents are required to be submitted by filing an application? So there are two parties here. One is the brand owner and the other party is the Indian importer, right? So the documents needed from the brand owner are a bit more compared to the Indian importer. So the first document which is required and which is the very important document, and hence is also requires legalization. By legalization, I mean notary or getting it apostilled at the country of the brand owner or the actual manufacturer. So this document is known as authorization from manufacturer, wherein the manufacturer will authorize the Indian importer for carrying out and taking the whole responsibility of the marketing, distribution, and queries containing to their products in India. Okay, so this document is somewhat similar to power of attorney. The name of this document previously was also power of attorney, but now they have changed it to authorization from manufacturer. Yeah. Then the other document required, which is also very important and requires legalization, is certificate of free sales. Next is, as I mentioned earlier, non-animal testing declaration, heavy metal compliance letter, a copy of GMP or manufacturing license, same as that in EU, artwork and labels for all the product, quantitative ingredient listing, wherein the exact percentage, weight by weight and not range, specification COA and testing method for the product, and any other clarification letter if they ask with respect to ingredient claims. Sometimes they ask for clarification So that letter in addition needs to be submitted, but this is only if asked. Now, what are the documents required from the Indian importer's end? So you need to submit a covering letter. A covering letter, basically, it's a letter stating that, I, being the importer, I am submitting all these documents which are listed in column of the legal manufacturer, and the importer signs it. So basically, that's the covering letter. Cost 1, which is the application form. This application form needs to be signed by the importer. And this application form gets generated online, which I'll show you in the next slide. Then there is something known as second schedule part 1, which is a letter having the particulars of the manufacturer and the list of products which the manufacturer intends to import into the country. Undertaking from importer, this is a letter wherein the importer accepts and signs the authorization from manufacturer. It takes the responsibility of taking care of the marketing, distribution, and any query raised by the authorities in India. Then also the Indian importer will have to take care of the payment. So the challan copy, proof of payment of requisite fee for registration. Now this basically is the common call taken between the brand owner and the Indian importer as to who will take care of the money given to the government, etc. So these are the set of documents which needs to be submitted while registering the products in India. Next, please. Now, what is the process for having the registration certificate? Yeah, so first, this process is supposed to take 5.5 to 6 months, provided each and every document is in place under the stated timelines. Okay, to start with, first we call out for primary documents to draft letters which require legalization. So the primary documents include the artworks, the information of the manufacturer and its actual manufacturers, if any, what are the categories of the products, what pack sizes the brand owner wants to import. So all these details are asked for in the first go. For us to for us to basically draft the letter which requires legalization. So first 1 to 2 weeks goes in asking for the primary information, primary documents basically to draft the authorization from manufacturer. Okay, so then once you are done drafting the authorization from manufacturer letter, as well as you are done with finalizing the list of products, you can straight away send it to the brand. The brand owner gives it for notarization and legalization. So the apostille process starts, which takes around, roughly as per our experience, it takes around 1.5 to 2 months for having the documents apostilled, legalized. In the parallelly, when this is happening, we start scrutinizing the ingredient listing, the specifications, COA documents, and the artwork for all the mandatory information if there, and making documents for the authorized agent in India, etc. So even this process takes 2 months time. So this is done parallelly till our documents are getting apostilled. So here you can say approximately 2.5 months of time is gone. Then once you have everything in hand, the importer has the SUGAM account. The importer logs it into the SUGAM account. SUGAM account basically, as I mentioned earlier, is the online portal in India wherein you will submit your application for registration. So that is there in hand. Then once you have everything, you upload the document as asked. Then you make the payment. You make the payment for the government fees calculated as per the category, variant, and the manufacturer, which is 1,000 for category, 50 for variant, and 500 for the manufacturer. You pay as per the dollar rate during that time. That is done immediately. Once you pay the government fees, you have to upload the document and close the application by next day. Maximum 2 days you can take it, because the dollar rate, it fluctuates and the authorities don't like it if you submit it after a longer period of time. So like within 1 to 2 days of paying the government fees, your application is there. You have system generated cost one, which is the form which needs to be signed by the importer. Once you have that, you sign it, you submit it, and your application is gone. Then it is the job of the government authorities to process your application. So ideally, the government authorities are given 6 months time to process the application, but I have not seen any time they taking the entire 6 months, unless and until the application is very critical. So within 3 months, you get your result, whether the application is approved or rejected. Mostly they don't reject any application unless and until the case is very severe. So they take 3 months time. In between, if they have any query or they need any clarification, they will raise a query and they'll ask you for the document. You close that, and then from the day you started, you till the day it ends, you have registration certificate. From the start date till the end date, it takes around 5.5 to 6 months to have it in hand. And once you have your registration in hand, it is valid for a period of 5 years. Okay, so this is the process for having registration certificate in India. Next, please. Yeah, so this is how the online portal in India looks like. This is the first page of the Sugam online login portal. I have also shared the link for the same, wherein you have to log in and then enter your details and click on new application, and then it's basically like a checklist wherein they'll ask, your products will come online and you have to submit the documents as asked. So this is how it looks like basically. Next, please. So finally, we have the slide wherein we are seeing what are the differences between India and EU regulations. There are not much differences, to be honest. So to start with, the main is the regulation name. Of course, in India, it's called as Cosmetic Rules 2020, wherein in EU, it's called as Regulation EC number 1223. Then the definition for both the countries is a bit different and not much different. Then, do you require the application to be approved? Yes, for India, yes, it is needed to be approved in CDSCO, and no, it just needs to be notified in CPNP portal for Europe. Ingredients, also the formulation check is the same for EU and India. It's just that in India it's called as BIS 4707 part 1 and part 2, and the annexes here is alphabetical, whereas in EU it's number, but the inside content, the list of substance which are prohibited, UV filters and preservative positive list along with some restrictions, raw materials which are allowed but with some restrictions, and the list of dyes and colorants which are allowed to be used in the cosmetic product, it remains the same. Yeah, safety assessment, it is not required for India. They might ask safety assessment report at the time of clearance, but it is required for EU regulation. This is one change, apart from the change of, having your product approved. Next, please. Next is the labeling. Yeah, there are a few points which are different to India. So I will just speak about the main points which are different. One is the manufacturing date, which is required in addition in India. The manufacturing license number, if any, it is required to be mentioned on the label. Then we have the registration certificate number and the importer details to be mentioned on the label. Claims for India, there should not be false or misleading claims, and for EU, it should comply to the 6 aspect, that is truthfulness, etc. Responsible person in India is the authorized agent and the importer, which is the responsible person. But in EU, the company in EU and which is reflecting on the artwork is the responsible person. Even in case of responsible person for EU, Ecomondo can be the responsible person. GMP, it is required in both India and Europe. Animal testing for India, it is banned as of now only on finished product, but for EU, it is banned on ingredient as well as the finished product. So overall, this is what are the regulations for India, and to successfully export cosmetics into the country. If you have any questions, I am open to that now. Thank you very much.